kilometers northeast of the capital Addis Ababa. Following heavy overnight rainfall accompanied by thunderstorm, the landslide sent mud and rocks crashing down a hillside, burying part of the Ethiopian Miriam Orthodox monastery while worshippers were praying. 3 people who sustained serious injuries were taken to Debre Berhan Hospital for treatment. Local authorities have confirmed the death toll at 14. Ethiopia is currently in its main rainy season, which runs from June to September, and the country has faced a series of deadly weather-related disasters in recent years. In July 2024, more than 250 people were killed in a landslide in southern Ethiopia, while floods and landslides claimed dozens more lives earlier that year. Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye is in intensive care after collapsing during a court appearance in Kampala. The 70-year-old, who is in custody on treason charges linked to an alleged plot against President Yoweri Museveni, reportedly fell unconscious after protesting the refusal to allow his preferred lawyer to represent him. Hospital officials have confirmed that Besigye is receiving treatment in intensive care unit, while medical sources say he remains in critical condition.
Found him lying there asleep, but he's very drained. He looked very weak. He remained asleep for a long time. When he could open his eyes, he still cannot talk. He cannot talk. He just shakes his head and shakes his hands. I have not come to ask for sympathy. No. I have come to insist calmly but firmly that Dr. Kizza Besigye is entitled to every right and protection guaranteed by the Constitution of Uganda.
A former personal physician to President Museveni, Besigye has been one of Uganda's most proficient opposition figures for more than 2 decades. He was abducted in neighboring Kenya in 2024 before being returned to Uganda to face trial. His collapse comes amid growing concerns over the treatment of opposition figures. One of his lawyers remains in detention, while another was denied entry into Uganda. The United Nations has also expressed alarm over what it describes as an escalating crackdown on dissent in Uganda. The UN says opposition supporters, journalists, human rights defenders, and civil society groups have increasingly faced arbitrary arrest and forced disappearance, torture, and other human rights violations. The rights body has also raised concerns about growing military involvement in civilian institutions and shrinking civic space under President Museveni's government. Artificial intelligence is now powering more than half of reported cybercrime activities across Africa, allowing criminals to launch faster, more convincing, and larger-scale attacks, according to Interpol's African Cyber Threat Assessment Report 2026. The report found that 55% of cybercrime cases recorded across the continent involve the use of AI, raising concerns as Africa's digital economy continues to expand. With more than 1.1 billion mobile subscribers in 2025, millions of people are relying on digital services, creating new opportunities for both innovation and cyber criminals. Based on data from 36 African countries, the 40-page assessment says cybercrime has also evolved into a highly organized cross-border industry that is becoming harder for authorities to detect and stop. According to the report, online scams remain the most common form of cybercrime in 2025. Criminals increasingly used artificial intelligence alongside social media platforms and mobile money services to target victims. Interpol said cybercrime-related financial losses have risen sharply over the past year, climbing from $192 million in 2024 to $484 million. Investigators attribute the increase to AI-powered fraud, stolen login credentials, and sophisticated social engineering attacks. The report also found that 72% of surveyed countries identified scam centers operating within their borders, with the highest concentration in West and Southern Africa.
Some of the stories there making the headlines across Africa. But we know that Ghana is home to the world's largest free trade area agreement, and yet President John Dramani Mahama is pledging to make it even more bigger. That's the African Continental Free Trade Area. At a news conference in Kingston, Jamaica, where his state visit is almost wrapping up, the president today indicated that he'll get other African leaders to include Caribbean states into this Continental Free Trade framework.
Africa and the Caribbean. I believe that our level of cooperation has increased than it was in the past. Indeed, at the last AU conference, the Caribbean was accepted and duly acknowledged as the 7th region of Africa. And so it allows the Caribbean to CARICOM to sit in AU meetings and to hold discussions affecting Africa and the Caribbean in AU meetings. And so I think that has been a major step forward. When I was speaking with Mr. Prime Minister, I said that one of the things that I would champion when I become AU chair next year, Ghana is assuming the chair of the African Union next year, is to expand the remit of the African Continental Free Trade Area to include the Caribbean. We've set up the African Continental Free Trade Area that allows us to export goods duty-free and tariff-free into each other's markets. That's a 1.4 billion population market, and that also is a 1.3 trillion GDP economy. And so we can plug the Caribbean in so that we can exchange goods between Africa and the Caribbean duty-free, tariff-free. And so that's one of the proposals that I'll take up in my chairmanship. And then with regards to the issue of reparations, I'll combine that with the last question about how the resolution was received and what the next steps are. We held a next steps conference after the UNGA. Indeed, before the resolution was voted on, there were fears that we would not be able to get the necessary votes to pass.
A lot more later on reparatory justice. But for now, let's stay focused on issues relating to trade across the continent. Is it time to join the Caribbean to this African Continental Free Trade Area? Time now to bring in one man who knows a lot more about what's happening to the AfCFTA, Ziad Hamoui, President, Borderless Alliance Ghana. Thank you so much for spending time with us. So let's get into it. President Mahama there making the announcement and indicating to the whole world what his plan will be from next year. Do you feel he'll get the buy-in of African leaders, others, I suppose, knowing that, well, the framework itself is off to a slow start?
First of all, good evening to you and to your listeners, and thank you for including me in your show. I think these are exciting times. I've listened to His Excellency's remarks, and I think it's an encouraging direction. And at the same time, I think I'm excited about the opportunities about widening the trade markets of Africa. But at the same time, I'm cautious. Let's say I'm cautiously optimistic about doing the needful first within the African territories before thinking about widening it up more, right? Now, keep in mind that, well, the main points that we've seen in His Excellency's remarks have to do with the harmonization of standards and tariffs between the Caribbean and the African continent, and that is important. That is actually part of the AfCFTA, which promises to reduce tariffs between African countries and to standardize the phytosanitary, and then the standards among trade between the different countries. And so if you look at it from the bigger picture, the essence of the AfCFTA is to create a harmonized set of standards for trading with Africa as a whole. It doesn't matter which country in Africa you are trading with, and that is the ultimate long-term objective. So that we have a common standards of investment, finance, trade, logistics, infrastructure, and so on. And so if you look at the moment at where the trade between Africa and the Caribbean stands, we have a study from the ITC and Afreximbank which pins the baseline of our trade between Africa and the Caribbean at $729 million at the moment, and it is thought to reach as much as 1.8 billion by 2028. Now, 1.8 billion out of the total market of Africa of 3.5 trillion, that's not much, but there's potential. And personally, I'm actually a fan of promoting South-South cooperation. I think there's a lot of potential in enhancing the trade relationship between Africa and the Caribbean, but I want to look more strategically, as I suspect His Excellency is also looking, because the Caribbean will allow us a stepping stone into the Latin American markets. And this is where my second point of caution would be, because you need to develop the adequate logistics and connectivity between Africa, and not just the Caribbean, but also with the Caribbean as a logistic hub to access the South American markets and Latin America.
Obviously,
it's a huge market.
Obviously,
Brazil and others.
Obviously,
So
there's no doubt.
there's
There's no doubt that the president is being ambitious here. But my initial question about reflecting even on the framework as we have it today, have we done that as a continent?
I think that we are currently on the correct path, to be honest with you. It might not be the speed that we have hoped to progress on, and we know that several countries so far has begun a reflection on the past 5 years of trading under the intra-African trade. A couple of countries, including Nigeria and I think Liberia, have already submitted their review of the implementation of the AfCFTA. Of course, more countries need to complete this review in order to say that we sat in 2018, we decided to do this, and we are going to do this in order to get there. And now we are in 2026. So where have we got it? And so I think we as Ghana have also to do the necessary and to sit down and reflect on where we stand with regard to the progress of the implementation of the AfCFTA. I think I can reliably say that the National Coordination Office of the AfCFTA in Ghana is currently in the process of reviewing, first of all, the AfCFTA implementation framework, which was onboarded a few years ago, about how much trade has actually taken place between Ghana and the various African countries under the AfCFTA. But I can say confidently that we are far away behind on our planned ambition on trading with regard to volumes. And so I think we need to do the necessary by harmonizing our standards and our operating procedures, our tariffs, and then looking at the connectivity of Africa. But then it is very important to have a vision to look at what next. Because Africa is not an island. Ghana is not an island. West Africa is not an island. So we are trading in order to promote economic development of Africa. Not just to boost African trade for the sake of doing that, but because we are hoping that by capturing these trades and economic developments, we are going to rapidly accelerate the development of our beloved nation and our beloved continent. And so if you are talking about the Caribbean, you're talking about a significant population. And then you are talking about a strategy of reaching out into the rest of South America. And then if you are looking at promoting South-South cooperation, then I think it is important to look at the implementation of AfCFTA across the various countries, Ghana included. I think we have to look internally and we have to reflect as a continent on how far we've come. And then we have to keep the long-term aspiration of enhancing our trade with the Caribbean and beyond.
Okay.
So to do that, we need to look at our investment protocols, our finance protocols, our tariffs and others. And then we have to look at the logistics. Yeah, but I think it's a laudable initiative.
There's no doubt that the focus would also be on the political framework that we have. You say South-South cooperation. Obviously, the African Union has moved long since to recognize that, and terming the Caribbean, for instance, as the sixth region of the African continent. Is that going to give a spare or a boost to what the president seeks to do? Because that will entail quite a political process, isn't it, next year, if that ideas floated at the African Union headquarters?
I think that many of the elements of the integration that are key to the success of the AfCFTA are currently being outlined and are being implemented. So agreements such as the Single African Air Transport Market, which creates an open skies across Africa, is currently being widened, and now there are prices of that are coming down thanks to the drive in lowering the cost of air transportation across the continent. Now, one area which I think we need to pay more attention to has to do with the creation of an African common framework for short sea shipping. I think Africa needs to have a common cabotage law. What we have at the moment is not enough. And if we don't have a law that allows us to trade directly among ourselves and for our ships to move from one port to the other, then I think we are going to eventually fall into a lot of difficulties moving forward beyond the continent. Now, keep in mind that what I admire about His Excellency is that he has the vision about the importance of developing the infrastructure, of the connectivity infrastructure. Remember that in November, His Excellency has inaugurated the first phases of MPS, a new terminal. And so he appreciates the importance of having the logistics hard infrastructure. Now, I think we have to also focus on the soft infrastructure which includes the tariffs, the standards, the safety requirements, and then the investment protocols that allow the African continent to reach out to other potential partners beyond the continent.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's I don't think it's beyond belief. I think it is achievable. I think it's a longer term. It is achievable with vision. But then in order to achieve that vision, you need to focus on the implementation of what you have at the moment at Africa. I think His Excellency's coming tenure as the chairperson of the African Union is an excellent opportunity because Ghana, as you know, is hosting the AfCFTA. It's about time that we assume the role that we wanted to assume in the first place by hosting the AfCFTA. But to do that, I think we have to look internally in order to make sure where we stand at the moment, where we want to go, and how we can get where we want to go, and what is necessary to do in order to get to that particular vision. But it's a load vision.
Yeah. So it doesn't look like you want to get into the politics of things. Nicely vetting all of the minefields in the question I asked earlier. But whatever the case, it will be the reality, isn't it, if the idea is floated?
But look, we both agree on the fact that promoting economic development and boosting intra-African trade is a good thing in itself. And we also agree that there are issues that are that are making it more difficult to integrate at the moment. You have some security concerns. You have some different visions and perspectives. But then we all agree to the fact that African integration is a long-term objective that we all agree on. We all agree that our market of 1.4 billion will have to be open to each other. And we need to start working on how to enhance the movement of our people across our continent, whether by road, by air, by sea, whether the goods will travel by trains or by ships or by planes. We need to make sure that, first of all, we get the infrastructure we need, and second, that we get the regulatory frameworks that allows us to talk among ourselves and then to consolidate all of this huge potential in order to negotiate and discuss with our potential partners and move forward with it. But I'll tell you that it's a long way to go, but it's important to have a long-term vision so that you know where you are going and what to do today in order to get there. That one is something I completely endorse.
Okay, the future is exciting. Thank you for spending time with us here on Connect Africa. Ziad Hamui, President, Borderless Alliance, Ghana. Okay, the President has been doing quite a lot more today, addressing Jamaica's Parliament, where he's pushing for reparatory justice over issues related to transatlantic slave trade. He's been speaking to the Jamaican Parliament. Here are excerpts.
In many respects, the story of Africa. It began in the great civilizations of our continent, the Empire of Ghana, Mali, Sogah, Great Zimbabwe, Buganda, Ashanti, Moshi, Benin, Ile-Ife, and many others. And this is before millions of Africans were forcibly taken across the Atlantic, endured the horrors of the Middle Passage, survived the brutality of enslavement, but found hope in communities in the New World that refused to surrender their identity, their faith, or their humanity. Against unimaginable odds, our ancestors preserved their cultures, their traditions, and their belief in freedom. They resisted oppression in countless ways, ensuring that future generations would inherit not despair, but hope. From the Maroon communities in Jamaica to the liberation movements that swept across Africa, the spirit of resistance of the African endured. And it ultimately gave birth to free nations that were determined to shape their own destinies. Today we honor the enslaved men and women whose labor enriched empires while their humanity was denied them. We honor those who resisted injustice. We honor those who fought for emancipation, self-determination, and national liberation. And we honor the generations whose sacrifice secured the freedoms that we enjoy today. Their courage reminds us that freedom is never given on a silver platter. It is earned through sacrifice. It is sustained by vigilance and is strengthened by unity. As we honor our shared past, we must also confront it with honesty and courage. History cannot be changed, but it can be acknowledged. And only by acknowledging historical truth can we build a future that is founded on reconciliation, justice, and mutual respect. As was recently reaffirmed at the United Nations General Assembly, the transatlantic slave trade and the racialized chattel enslavement of Africans was the gravest crime committed against humanity. The consequences of this grave crime did not end with abolition. The consequences continue even today to shape the patterns of inequality and exclusion that have persisted across our world. For this reason, we must remain steadfast in advancing the global conversation on reparatory justice. Our pursuit of reparatory justice is not motivated by resentment or hostility or a desire to revisit old wounds. It is inspired by our commitment to the truth, to accountability, to reconciliation, and to healing. It seeks recognition of historical wrongs, acknowledgement of their enduring consequences, and a collective determination to build a more just and equitable global order. In this regard, permit me to express Ghana's profound appreciation to the government and people of Jamaica for your unwavering support to Ghana's initiative at the United Nations, which culminated in the adoption of Resolution ARES/80/250, and for your invaluable contribution to the Accra Next Steps Conference on Reparatory Justice. Jamaica has provided principled leadership on this important issue for many years. Together, our two nations are ensuring that the descendants of those who suffered history's greatest injustice are neither forgotten or denied a voice in shaping a fairer world. Our advocacy is ultimately about hope. Hope that our future generations will inherit a world in which historical truth is acknowledged, human dignity is upheld, and justice becomes the foundation for lasting reconciliation. And that is the vision that continues to unite Ghana and Jamaica. It is a vision worthy of our ancestors. It is a vision to which we remain unwaveringly committed. I wish to also reiterate my message to the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. Andrew Holness, yesterday, that Ghana fully supports the petition on slavery Jamaica proposes to soon submit to King Charles III. Right Honorable Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, Right Honorable President, honorable members, while we must never forget the injustices of history, neither must we allow them to imprison us. The story of people of African descent is not simply one of suffering. It is equally a story of resilience, excellence, and enduring achievement. It is a story of civilizations that advance human knowledge, of freedom fighters who challenged oppression, of innovators who expanded the frontiers of science and technology, of artists whose creativity enriched global culture, and of statesmen and women who inspired nations to believe in the possibilities of freedom and self-determination. Few countries have contributed to this legacy I describe more profoundly than Jamaica. The land that gave the world the visionary leadership of the Right Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, whose call for black pride, self-reliance, and African unity awakened the consciousness of millions across Africa and the diaspora. His ideas inspired generations of Pan-African leaders, including our own founding father, President Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who admitted in many of his writings that he drew strength from Garvey's vision in leading Ghana to independence and championing the liberation and unity of the African continent. The Pan-African movement itself is a testament to the inseparable bonds between Africa and the Caribbean. It was nurtured not only by Africans, but also by distinguished Caribbean sons and daughters, among them the great Trinidadian Pan-Africanist George Padmore, who made Ghana his home and worked side by side with President Nkrumah in advancing the cause of African liberation and unity. These towering figures remind us that the freedom of Africa and the Caribbean has always been a shared enterprise. Jamaica has also given humanity the timeless message of Bob Marley, whose music transcends borders. And whose voice became a universal anthem for freedom, justice, and human dignity. Through your writers, musicians, athletes, and creative talents, Jamaica has projected a cultural influence far beyond its size and has enriched the heritage of the global African family. In Ghana, across the Atlantic, we've never regarded these achievements as Jamaica's alone. We have celebrated them as victories for all people of African descent. Today, although we live under different flags and may speak with different accents, we remain united by a common heritage and an interconnected destiny. The challenge before us is therefore clear. We must transform our shared history into shared purpose. We must move beyond sentiments and build partnerships that create opportunity, expand prosperity, and improve the lives of our people. And as our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, reminded us, and I quote, he says, "The forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influences that keep us apart." Those words speak as powerfully to us today as they did at the dawn of African liberation. Now our generation must secure economic transformation, scientific advancement, and technological leadership. As Bob Marley famously reminds us, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. The liberation of the African mind remains one of the defining tasks of our generation. It demands confidence in our own institutions. It demands belief in our own capabilities and an unwavering commitment to accountability and excellence. Above all, it requires that our young people see themselves not as descendants of slaves, but as heirs to greatness and architects of an even greater future. Madam Speaker, Right Honourable President, honourable members, the 21st century presents Africa and the Caribbean with an historic opportunity. Africa is home to the world's youngest, fastest growing population, possesses immense natural resources, and is becoming rapidly a growing center of innovation and enterprise. The Caribbean and Jamaica continue to exercise global leadership on climate justice, sustainable development, democracy, and multilateral cooperation. And most of all, Jamaica presents a gateway to the larger American and Caribbean areas. Together, these two regions possess enormous human talent, cultural influence, and economic potential. History has connected us, and the future now calls upon us to work together with greater ambition. We must strengthen cooperation between African Union and the CARICOM. We must deepen our collaboration within the United Nations and other multilateral institutions. And we must coordinate our positions on issues that will define the future of humanity. Whether the challenge is climate change, reform of the international financial architecture, food security, public health, or digital transformation, our voices will carry greater weight if we speak together. The partnership between Africa and the Caribbean should therefore no longer be defined only by our shared past, but also by our shared future. It should be recognized for the future we are determined to build together. It is this conviction that inspired me to call the Accra Reset Conference recently. The Accra Reset reflects our belief that institutions governing the world must evolve to reflect the realities and aspirations of the 21st century. Too many developing countries continue to confront structural barriers to financing, unequal trading arrangements, and inadequate representation in global decision-making bodies. These inequities cannot define our future. The Accra Reset calls for a new development paradigm founded on mutual respect, productive investment, and genuine partnership. It seeks to accelerate industrialization, promote value addition, encourage innovation, exercise national sovereignty over our resources, and equip our young people with the knowledge and skills to compete successfully in the global economy. But above all, it calls for a more balanced international order in which developing countries participate as equal partners in shaping global solutions. And that is why Ghana continues to advocate comprehensive reform of the United Nations Security Council, including permanent African representation. It is the reason why we support reforms that give developing countries a stronger voice within the international financial institutions. And it is why we believe Africa and the Caribbean must continue to stand together in pursuit of a fairer, more inclusive, and more representative international system. When we work together, our partnership becomes more than just a historical connection. It becomes a powerful force for global progress, for shared prosperity, and for lasting justice. Madam Speaker, history has brought Ghana and Jamaica together. The future now calls upon us to deepen that relationship with renewed purpose and greater ambition. Our friendship has endured because it's founded not merely on diplomacy, but on shared values, on mutual respect, and an abiding sense of kinship. We recognize in each other not only trusted partners, but members of the same global African family. The task before us is therefore very clear. It is to transform our historical bonds into practical partnerships that create jobs for our people, expand opportunities, and improve the lives of our citizens. The African Continental Free Trade Area, which has its headquarters in Accra.
President John Dramani Mahama wrapping up his tour, state visit to Jamaica. We'll bring you updates in our subsequent bulletins. Time now to talk sports, but much more importantly about the National Paralympic Committee of Ghana, which is now dismissing reports suggesting that some team members, athletes of the country, have gone missing following the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, insisting that such claims are inaccurate and not supported by verified information. Rumors went viral on social media that some of the Ghanaian sportsmen left camp and could not be accounted for. However, the Paralympic Committee of Ghana says its athletes are rather returning in phases. Let's get more from Joy Sports' Razak Mosbao, who's joining us in studio now. I feel like joining some of these guys now. So once I make it to Glasgow, yeah, that's the end of the story. But is that really what's happening? We can't find them?
At the moment, I think the indication is that they are not in camp. They're not in camp. It explains why their whereabout is unknown. At least what we can confirm is that they are not in camp. As to where they are, it's unclear where they are at the moment.
Who did we, what categories of athletes did we field this summer?
So we had quite a number of them. We had some participating in boxing. Then we had some participating in swimming. We had some participating in the track and field events. We had also some para-athletes. In all, we had a 40-member team to the Commonwealth.
Oh, as many as 40?
Yeah, there were as many as 40.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Members going there. And so what we understand, of course, the events ended on Sunday, and quite a number of them have returned. In fact, the CDM, the Charge d'Affaires himself, has returned. Understand? Yeah, he has returned.
Whoa.
And so he has returned.
Yeah, that's raising lots of questions.
Yeah, of course, it raises a lot of questions. He has returned. And so when the question was put to him, Charles says he also doubles as the Deputy Vice President of the Ghana Olympic Committee. He mentioned that, look, it cannot be reported that these athletes have gone missing because they do have their visa ending on the 16th of August. Also, the departure of the team member, Team Ghana, has been scheduled in batches. So some people have come while others are going to come back.
Let's get this whole story right. So some of the leadership or leading members are back home.
Yeah.
And we're asking you, where are the 40 individuals? You're saying, well, some will come later, but we're not sure of when they'll come.
Yeah. So,
except that they've not exceeded their stay.
Exactly. So
that's the whole claim.
Yeah, so first of all, they haven't exceeded their stay because they've got the room to stay there until the 16th of August. Yeah. That's one. And number two is that according to the leadership, these athletes are returning in batches. So some have returned and others will eventually return.
Is that the norm in sports, by the way?
Yeah, I mean...
because you see, for instance, well, the Black Stars, when they're going to play, they go together. And some of the athletes, when they're going on camping or whatever it is, they're usually doing that in teams. Yeah. What's changed now?
I mean, it's the usual. Nothing has really changed. It just happens that clearly, if this... by 16th of August, these individuals do not return, then we can confirm that they have run away. Now, what often happens is that, look, whoever is the leader of the team need to keep tabs on all of these athletes. Every time they are done with the competition, you make sure, is this one around, is this one around, why are you going to? You keep tabs on all of them. So that even if somebody is going to visit his family member, etc., before their eventual departure, you keep tabs on them. You know where they are.
Some official permission.
Exactly. So the explanation now is that, look, they haven't run away. We're just waiting. They've got time, at least 16th of August, before they return. And what's a bit worrying is that if you look at some of the individuals who have actually, whose name have come up, one of them is a para-athlete, Zainabu Issa, and she even won bronze for Ghana. She won one.
So that's a medalist there.
Yeah, that's a medalist there. You know, she won bronze for Ghana, a shot putter there. So her name has also come up as one of the individuals who cannot be accounted for. But the association says, no, these individuals have not run away and they are only returning in badges and they have the opportunity to stay there until the 16th of August. So now...
probably she's just cooling off, having some vacation.
So, but it's just strange. It's strange to think
have we had this of any other national...
No, we haven't heard. We haven't heard of any other nationals who have, because it's at the end of the event, and often we get to hear that, some individuals have failed to return because the immigration officials will have the data. People who are supposed to return, because everyone has got until 16th of August to return. So the individuals who do not return within that period, then the communication will go out there that, look, this number of people did not return when they were supposed to. So it's after that we get all of that details. But it's just worrying, just like you mentioned, to think that the leaders have returned, yet the athletes, some of them are still there.
Still back there. Having fun, we're not too sure.
Exactly. How do you book? How do you, because the games ended on Sunday.
Yeah.
So they ended on Sunday. It means that if you're booking the tickets, you book them. If not for anything at all, the athletes return before the leaders to make sure that everybody has returned. Then you will come home.
Yes.
Haven't accounted for all the athletes. But to think that some of the leaders have returned and some of the athletes haven't returned, and the leaders are in Ghana telling us that, oh, we actually have them returning in badges. How did you have them returning in badges in a manner that the leaders return before the athletes?
And they're not able to tell what the status of these individuals are.
Exactly.
Or perhaps where they are.
Exactly. So, I mean, at the moment, that's the suspicion. But we are also picking that, look, they are doing their very best to ensure that this does not escalate into something they can control.
Okay,
So
let's look at the possibilities in terms of motives. What could be driving an athlete here in this country to want to, remain elsewhere?
I mean,
is it that they're paying more elsewhere? Or?
It's unlikely these athletes, if it happens, they eventually they indeed run away. It's unlikely that they're running away to go and compete there. It's unlikely.
Right.
That maybe
because that would be very funny.
Yeah, that would be very funny. Because how are you going to compete? They will obviously
there's documentation and everything.
Exactly. So we have two boxers. It's unlikely that they are looking to stay in the UK beyond their time, hoping to compete as a boxer in the UK. That's unlikely. It just maybe like the case of the fans who decided to stay in Canada. Yeah. They just want to stay there and possibly see if they can have some
economic opportunities. Yeah.
Exactly. So that appears to be the case. But for me, it's really worrying. It's really worrying to think that such a thing is going to happen. Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking the question is you look at post the World Cup, the Canadian officials released some documentation. 25 we understand Ghanaians decided to seek asylum in Canada after the games. Could it possibly be the same thing that these athletes are doing now?
Well,
that would be a unique
The suspicion is that if they seriously want to stay there, that could be the route you want to choose, okay? That you go and seek asylum, and then they can determine your case. Are
we chasing them out of this country?
No, I mean, whatever your reason could be. I mean, the reasons for seeking asylum could be. So whatever your reason could be.
Just explain to us.
Go and do that. Yeah. But fundamentally, if the idea is you want to run away, it's very difficult unless you go and hide in some rural area in the UK or something like that. Other than that, if you want to live in the urban areas, they will definitely fish you out. And it'll be
even in the rural areas. I mean, you're a sportsman basically. All over the place. We've seen you on the screens.
Exactly, especially if one of them being a medalist. It's look. The point is that if they choose to stay, it will really dent. It will dent, the leadership of the Ghana Olympic Committee. It will dent them because then it will be difficult for them to vouch for some of these athletes. They have to go through rigorous screening before some of them get the opportunities to go. So
this is almost like robbing the shine off some of the gains we've made at this game. How did we fare, really?
I mean, it wasn't really impressive. We just made 2 medals. Like I mentioned, the bronze medalist, the para athlete, and another bronze medal in boxing. So just 2 medals. It wasn't the best of performance, at least, but we didn't bow out without a medal. We did. So at least there should be some conversation. Oh yeah, these individuals have done well. But to think that one of the individuals who ordinarily would have been commended is part of the people who are reported to have,
been unaccounted for.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Okay, wait, any concerns from family members now as to the whereabouts of their people? Or they're as happy as they are for their people staying back in the UK?
I mean, we haven't heard from the family members. Obviously, we haven't heard from the family members. But I believe that if it's the case that they cannot reach them, they will be concerned. They absolutely will be concerned. And I'm sure the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and even the Ghana High Commission in the UK will be working strenuously to try and track them and make sure that they're able to make contact. Because anything at all could have happened.
And who says, by the way, that they're still in the UK? Maybe they're on their way back home and just decided to have some fun.
On their way back home,
probably,
the ticket has been scheduled by the leadership. They give you time when you're supposed to fly. But like I said, it could be anything at all. It could be anything at all. If they're able to track them, fine. It could be anything at all. It could be that, like you said, maybe they've gone missing, or anything could have happened to them. And all of those things.
Is this the first of its kind in any of these recent tournaments that Ghana has had?
Not the first time.
Also, there's some trend.
It's not the first time we have an athlete actually ran away from camp, and not peculiar to Ghana. Even in some other, countries, you see athletes going for competitions and decided to run away. So it's not the first time something like that is happening. Just as recent as this year, we had some footballers from, I think, Iran who went to Australia and decided not to return to their country. You know, so it's common. It's a common practice. But in the case of Ghana, like you mentioned, you wonder what the excuse will be for deciding to run away from Ghana, if not to just try to break the law and seek other opportunities.
And then this is reminding me of. Was it the Oslo scandal too? Because somewhere last year, I recall having a conversation with you on a similar situation, but that became a bit more complex because some of the individuals were arrested. They were indeed arrested. And that's what I think the leadership want to avoid. Really want to avoid a situation where some of these individuals who are not accounted for end up being arrested, and now when you could have actually returned to the country in an honorable manner, then you'll probably be handcuffed and deported. It's a very sad situation. That's something they want to avoid. So they're working strenuously behind the scenes. And at least based on what I've picked, they're in touch with the Ghana High Commission, the Excellency. Is it Zita Benz?
Zita Benz, you know, working really behind the scenes, because she was one of the people who made arrangement to try and accommodate them, you know, when they got into the country. So they're working hard to try and trace them.
The development of the sports itself, is it off the ground, or there's still lots of work to be done by this committee?
There's a lot of work to be done, honestly. There's a lot of work to be done. And in fact, we were speaking to the head coach of the boxing team today on one of our shows, and he was telling us about some of the challenges they had in terms of preparation. So much that even kits for some of the boxers to use for their various matches were not readily available, and they had to share the kits, interestingly. So someone wear the shorts when he's done fighting.
And then you share it with the next.
Then another person. And it was so dire that you see the gown protector, they even have to share that.
Really?
They had to share that. He mentioned it. And it was quite disturbing. And he said it was...
But we're channeling so much funds into mainline sports. Okay, I don't have to call them mainline, but of course, we know the obvious, football in this country. Why are we not doing much for boxing and the others?
I mean, it's a question that has still not been answered. It is not just because of this year, but even in recent years, nobody has been able to answer that question. Why boxing does not get the kind of attention maybe like football gets, or other sporting disciplines? Because the point is that if you want to do sports, then you should
go all out.
And that's why we just limit it to football. Sometimes you can understand in the case of the Black Stars, because the Black Stars themselves are able to generate fans, which in turn is used to support them. The case of boxing is difficult because when they were going, I think it was just one company that, you know, offered them some donation to go. Apart from that, they didn't get any proper support. So, it's part of the issues.
Anyway, guys, you know what? Musbah is back in a few more minutes to give you updates on that latest story we have for you, plus more updates. Until then, that's all time will allow us here on Connect Africa. I am Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. More stories there for you. Thanks to Razak for joining us, and he'll be back shortly. Stay with us.
Hi, it's me. The one you poke, sip, and hopefully love. I'm your small reminder that growing up doesn't mean growing out of me. Trends come and go, but you still reach for me. I'm not just a drink, I'm that little sip that reminds you life can still be sweet. Calipo fruit juice drink, making sweet memories. This advert is FDA approved.
Hello, my name is Pamela from Customer Service. Please revalidate your account by texting your Ghana card number to 0500,000 247.
Hey, Abili, wabadim. Madam, give me the numbers behind your ATM card. I'm calling from the head office.
An email was delivered